Welcome to the Church of Mabus radio show. It's Friday night, 7:01 p.m. Well, that clock's wrong. 7:07 p.m. Central. Every clock is wrong in this house. So even the synchronized one on the computer is not right when it's supposed to be like synchronized to some weird like universal thing that does it automatically. We have Daniel Moeller here with us tonight, the Shamanic Soul, a guidebook for self-exploration, healing, and mysticism. Good to have you here, Daniel.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
And our co-host is Wham tonight. Wham representing.
Hello, Wham.
She's up in New York City.
No, 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 and
Okay,
no. I'm up in the Mid Hudson Valley. There's such a difference.
okay, gotcha. I've never been there, so I don't know.
No, everybody thinks that if you live in New York, you live in the city. It's like, no, there's like a whole state, and the city's like down at the southernmost end of the state.
Cool. And real quick, tell everybody about your audiobook so everyone will know about
Oh
that.
yes, okay, yes. The book I published 3 years. I guess it's been 2.5 years ago now, before the pandemic. Mysterious Beauty Living with the Paranormal in the Hudson Valley is now available on Audible.
Cool.
And it's narrated by the most amazing Michael Hacker, who we have interviewed on the show.
And he's been doing those Jock Valet UFO books on his.
And
He scored those things, so
yes,
those
yes.
are pretty cool for sure. So you can find those also on what is it, Dimensions or Revelation? It's like the trilogy or something that
Yeah.
Jock Valet did. So you can check those out. All right. First off, Daniel, the reason we do this show is because weird stuff happened to us. And so you're in good company. And basically, just to give you the breakdown is of my story. When I was 17, testicular cancer, went through chemo, lost one in the war. And then several years later, my dad died. And it was just a lot. So I started seeking spiritual and had a lot of weird experiences from UFO stuff. I don't know if I was abducted. If so, I don't remember a damn thing, but I've seen weird stuff in the sky. Had some being encounters that I don't know what they were. I've heard everything from angels to, gnomes to elves. But one of my big ones is I've seen beings of light with my physical eyes sober. I've seen them while partying, but I've seen beings of light many times, which, in a lot of shamanism, makes luminous beings of light. So basically just did the show to find out what the heck happened. And here we are 13 years later. And one of the big things that helped me with shamanism and coming across, Michael Harner and Serge Galley King and Jose Stevens and, Carlos Castaneda, which was interesting, even though I know there was some weird cult stuff that happened because I interviewed that Amy Irving and there was some weird abuse in that little situation.
Yeah.
But that was someone that helped me, deal with stuff. And I guess my first question for you is what started you on this journey?
Well, I've always kind of like my whole life since I was little had just weird, strange encounters and occurrences and things happen. Seeing, supernatural figures, appearing in my bedroom, in other locations when I was young. So all kinds of stuff happening like that pretty regularly throughout my young life. But what really got me into the shamanic work was I went through a period of my young adulthood, had a violent incident happen to me, and it basically I ended up getting diagnosed with PTSD, and it made me sick. Like the doctor tells you, if you're not like feeling well emotionally, you're gonna get sick physically, and that's what happened to me. My immune system was completely compromised. I was in and out of the hospital. I was usually spending a good part of my life completely covered in massive boils that were just, eating through my skin, covered in bandages, bleeding out all the time, in pain. And, with the PTSD, I could not interact. It was hard to go to work. I couldn't even, I wouldn't even be able to have this conversation without vomiting, let alone like now I can go and speak in front of 200 people without breaking a sweat. But I started down the path of like alternative modes of healing, like energy healing, Reiki, and things like that. But it still, nothing was ever really quite gelling. And some of my community, mentioned, she said to kind of go down the Native American path, and that she felt like that was something that would be important for me to pursue. I didn't really know what that meant. I mean, I've always been interested in Native American spirituality, like huge interest. But I just like, how does a white guy in the middle of Kansas, you know, go down that path? Um, but it turns out, not 20 minutes away from me, living out in the boonies, was a man who is trained in Peruvian Quirindismo and also was trained in the Lakota tradition as well, and ended up connecting me to many other medicine men and women of these traditions and paths, including from Peru, some from the First Nations peoples here in America as well, and just started diving in, training, and it just, the first time I met him, I mentioned him in my book. His name was Daniel as well, which was a synchronicity. And like around that time, that's like, all these like coincidences were gelling in my life together. I'd always experienced some supernatural phenomenon before, but everything was coming together at that time, which, synchronicity is usually pretty like a common signifier that you're kind of heading in a very interesting direction. You may want to pursue that path. UFO encounters were huge. I don't know why the shamanic path is so in tune with like the UFO phenomenon, but it is. And other types of just unexplainable things happening to me. But the most important miraculous thing really for me was, in a matter of a couple of years, I mean, I was completely healed of the ailments that were like destroying my body and destroying my health. And here I am.
So when you first met this medicine man, I mean, that's pretty unique. What state were you in?
Kansas.
Kansas. Okay.
Kansas. And I always like to tell people, Kansas City has a wonderful secret, and its secret is that it has an amazing metaphysical community. Amazing. There are so many different groups and organizations here, and they're all really well connected, and everybody's very supportive of one another. And I've known people who have left Kansas City and have gone to places like California or wherever, thinking they're going to get these really cool spiritual, like alternative community experiences, but they always end up missing Kansas City. Because it really is pretty fabulous here. It's one of the reasons I really enjoy living here.
It is. I know. I had tragedy with testicular cancer. You had tragedy. Would you consider that a shamanic death that kind of brought you into it? That's what it kind of seems like with mine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's that whole adage of the wounded healer. The person that has to face that sort of death or pain and a breaking point, in order to kind of move through to the other side. It's a form of initiation in many indigenous cultures, right? It's a process of, who you were no longer works and operates anymore, and it has to die off. And a new form of yourself has to strive and move through, and that's certainly what the shamanic initiation process was for me. That's what my training was all about. And that's what I really appreciated about it, is that, I was kind of going through that anyway, just because of my health, but it gave me context and understanding of what I was going through, and kind of helped provided a compass for me to kind of navigate into a better form of myself.
And definitely. And you said when you were younger, you would see spirits, or do you think there were alien beings? What kind of encounters?
Um, you know, I- Me and my buddies, would always see things, but I did have a lot of occurrences. Another thing I note in my book is one of the first experiences I have of any memory is of a supernatural woman watching me through a window, and this figure would always kind of come back and reoccur. Not really alien related. It doesn't feel ghostly either. I've never really understood what it is. But I had UFO phenomenon when I was young too. I've seen, I've encountered all sorts of weird things. I grew up out in the Ozarks, and there's all kinds of just weird stuff out there. Really,
Any Bigfoot situations?
no, I've never encountered like Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti. Although I do know that specifically in like the Himalayas, the Yeti is like a shamanic figure. It's like this being, this demonic being that kind of acts as a um, what am I trying to say? A medium point between this world and the next. So I know that there's some indigenous cultures in the Himalayas that will actually give offerings, to the Yeti whenever they're wanting to commune with the other world, which I've always been interested in, and I've always wanted to go to an area where, there are sightings and, check it out and
Well,
commune
you
with
need to come up here to New York.
Go to New York, not New
Yes,
York City though.
no, in the Hudson Valley, because the Bigfoot, the Bigfoot, whatever, the big hairy guy, creature here is identified with an Algonquin spirit, an Algonquin forest guardian named Masinque.
Whoa.
So, in fact, Masinque celebrations were part of the Harvest Ancestor Festival among the original Munsee Esopus people here. They don't do the Great House ceremony anymore. That's what they called it. And there are specific reasons for that. But if you check out in Oklahoma, if you look up the Delaware Nation, you'll see they have a mask of a being who's half red and half black, his face, and that's the mask of Masinque.
Yeah, I'll need to check that out. That's interesting you say that because in my heritage, I found out not too long ago, I have my family line has a connection with the Delaware um, in our past, and I even have I come from a Mennonite background, and they keep their family history pretty tight. They've got these giant ledgers, and I inherited some. And there's a case of like my great 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 cousin was there was an attack on a Mennonite village, and the Delaware Indians took my ancestor and a few of his other siblings and inducted them into the tribe and all that stuff. And I know people have had like, people have stories about like, oh, my great aunt was, an Indian princess, whatever. But I mean, it's an actual written thing. I've always been wanting to take to the Delaware tribe so they can just have that as part of their history.
Well, the Delaware is what the Munsee came to be called.
Yeah.
When they went west.
Interesting.
Refugees. So where I live on the actual place where the house is where I live is in an old Munsee wintering area. So I've become very connected sort of with all of that around. I mean, not all the Munsee left. Some of them are still here.
Sure. Some of them are in, even though I guess the home is in Oklahoma, some of them are in Kansas as well. We have a Delaware community here.
There's a Delaware. Yeah, it depends on what reservation they ended up in. So there are some Delaware in Kansas and some in Oklahoma, and then there are some Munsee. But outside of Kansas and Oklahoma, they do refer to themselves as Munsee. So there is like one Munsee group in Canada, and then there's another one in Wisconsin. And that are recognized by the state, by the federal government. There are other pockets of them, though, that have remained. And I've been fortunate enough to connect with some of them here. So
that's awesome. Yeah, good to know.
Definitely cool. And definitely some history. I have a book on Bigfoot. It's a fascinating subject. It's Praise for the Hairy Man, Secret Life of Bigfoot. It's interviews with all kinds of different people about Bigfoot, from the craziest thing to the hunter that wants to bag and tag it to a guy that thinks it's an alien. So, which is Kawani Laparitis, which he's pretty cool. Sasquatch people has a very interesting book, but it's a fascinating subject for sure. And I guess one thing I've been dealing with lately is I've had a kidney stone situation. I know I was told that there's one that's big that needs surgery, and I'm trying some stuff that's coming in the mail called Stonebreaker Chakra Piedro, and I've been having some blood pressure stuff. And lately, just sleep has just been butchered. Like, so I've been dealing with like fatigue and, just God, it's just felt like dreadsome. So I guess, what do you do when you're feeling like that? Is there anything that you like to do that helps you to boost your energy or that's shamanic? I mean, what are some things that you do?
Yeah, my regular practice, other than just going out and just being in the woods by myself, is I was trained in the tradition of the Mesa, which is a specific shamanic altar that I use for healing purposes. So on this altar, we have what we call art days, which are just sacred artifacts that we have on the altar that have very specific purposes. Some for healing, some for meditation, some for divination, and so on and so forth. And so in most shamanic or animistic lineages, everything is conscious. Everything has a sort of consciousness to it that you can commune with and interact with. And so these artifacts, we interact with them as conscious beings that provide medicine. And some of these artifacts can just be a rock, that you found on a walk somewhere or something, or a stick. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. And it's different for every practitioner. It's, because it's important that these artifacts are, special specifically to you, to the individual, and that you have a relationship with them. And so my practice is usually engaging with those artifacts in what I call limpias, which is a form of using those artifacts to kind of clean out heavy and dense energy within my body, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, whatever. Um, and I don't just use them in a way, it's like asking permission and then also giving offerings to them, when I'm done, utilizing them as tools in that way, or as assistants, because that's part of the whole, it's just shamanic paradigm is a lot of it is about having rapport with the other realms and with the unseen realms. And so with that, we have to have a relationship like you would, just like I would with any of you, or I would with my wife or something. You have to give a little intake, and it's a relationship you're having with a being, and you have to treat them in that way, and almost talk to them like, crazy Tom Hanks talking to a volleyball or whatever. I mean, I mean, that's kind of accurate and very true. It's that, you kind of maybe seen movies of people like talking to their plants or whatever. It's the same thing. We use plants in that regard too. Um, and so that's like my main mode of like health moderation for myself. Other than just going and sitting under a tree for a while in the woods, away from everyone and everything. So,
Yes. And when it comes to shamanic training, what are some of the things that you can share that maybe you were taught at first by your teacher? And then if you could go a little bit more into that.
um, well, one of the things that I was first taught, other than just, kind of the basics of the Mesa, like what I've talked with you, what I just shared with you, but that consciousness and reality is broken down into three basic levels of being. And if you've read Michael Harner's Way of the Shaman, you mentioned him earlier, he talks about the higher realm and the middle realm and the lower realm. And the tradition I was raised in and trained in was a Peruvian tradition. And so they refer to those realms as the Hanak Pacha, which just kind of basically means that higher realm, the Kai Pacha, the middle realm, and the Uku Pacha, the lower realm. And they're not like worlds in the sense that, people think of, okay, so there's heaven and hell and then earth. They're more about dimensions of consciousness and being within oneself. They do have spaces you can travel to through astral travel, which was, shamanic journeying, which was a huge part of the training as well. But really engaging with those realms, learning how to navigate them both in conscious states of mind and altered states of mind. as a means to kind of heal myself and others was like one of the main the fundamental things to learn from the very beginning, because each one of those dimensions holds a piece and a part of who we are as human beings. So like the lower realm, the ukupacha, is more kind of a subconscious state where, you know, our subconscious mind resides. The kaipacha, the middle realm, is the here and now, right? It's us here talking, and it's where we eat, sleep, and go to the bathroom and have our animals in our house. And then the higher realm, the hanakpacha, is, you know, very kind of associated with that sort of like angelic realm, you know, but also can be, you know, a place for, like you mentioned earlier, luminous beings, or, you know, these like ascended beings or ancestors that kind of help guide us. I see the Hanakpacha more as a realm of aspiration and inspiration, like, you know, where the compass points north. So it's for me, it kind of represents the future state of my evolution. um, and so those were some of the like the main concepts that I learned. And then, you know, I would have to, you know, I was taught all sorts of things, including how to do limpias for myself and others, so energy clearings. Learned the preparation of, you know, different herbal remedies, specifically work that we did with the San Pedro cactus, an entheogenic sacrament that we used for healing as well. um, and, you know, also just like the basics of, you know, doing pilgrimage out in the out in the wilderness on my own, and being tasked with, you know, vision quest and, you know, stuff like that. But yeah, numerous things. And I did go through kind of like a, I don't know if it's like a graduation, but did get put through a sort of rites of passage, which was pretty brutal, because it was about, you know, testing me to my absolute limit, and pushing me, you know, to kind of, you know, create or kind of induce a shamanic death for myself, to kind of, you know, help me evolve into the next form of human that I was, you know, aiming to be in my life. So that was a lot.
And San Pedro, is that like peyote or something similar?
It's similar. It's mescaline based, like peyote is, and it's in the same family of cacti, but it is a different species. Peyote grows in buttons, usually in the American or North American Southwest, and the San Pedro, also known as Huachuma, in Peru, usually grows in the highlands, you know, of the Andes Mountains, and grows in stalks, just like pure, just really tall. And they can get up to, I mean, my gosh, they can get up to 12 feet tall in some cases. They can get really huge. So yeah, pretty much learned the like preparation of that, you know, taking that and inducing that, and then being able to assist others, you know, in those journeys, and healing specifically through the use of that particular sacrament.
I miss DMT. It's short and sweet, and you don't think you're going to die for 3 hours or 4 hours.
You know, Sam. You know, yeah. I mean, yeah. So I hear you in the sense of, you know, mother ayahuasca and how that can feel. But San Pedro is really gentle. I think I've never had a negative experience. It's always just been beautiful, and really keeps me like alert, and it's full of life. It just feels so full of life. Anytime I've ever had the opportunity to be in relationship with it. So
I could have had experience with the toad situation, but I watched some videos of that, and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to do that one.
yeah, that looks
That was
really
scary.
brutal. It looks
Situation.
really
Yeah,
brutal.
no way. Like I'm having blood
Yeah.
pressure just not on anything. That's not a good idea. It's
You know,
terrifying.
there was a while when I was younger, and I wanted to, you know, get involved in like any kind of thing like that, and I was interested in doing it all. And I when I finally got through my rites of passage, I kind of got to the point where I was like, you know, I think I've done enough. I feel confident. You know, I don't need to prove myself with anything, and
Yeah.
um, there's no reason to like push yourself unnecessarily, and that kind of
Definitely.
stuff seems like it's just really pushing it.
Yeah, some of
No
it for
judgment to
sure.
anybody who's doing it, and if it works for you.
Yeah, definitely. I'm to the point I don't want to go to the emergency room, but mild stuff I might try. But
Yeah.
and one of my weirder experiences, and I was on something with a friend partying in my 20s, but we were it might have been an ex or something. But anyway, we're in the back of a house. And we saw three cloaked beings standing in the woods in a black box, and they were very small, and a cat jumped towards them and they vanished. And we both saw it, like it was mutual. Like, do you see that? Yeah, you see that. And at the time, I had been reading stuff about Celtic otherworld and stuff like that. So it seems like a lot of that can happen. Like when you read something, you can bring stuff onto you on some level.
Mhm.
I think I've had that happen a lot. Or recently, I got bit by something on my leg. I still don't know what it is, but my mom also got bit on her hand by something, and I said a prayer to Raphael, because I usually use Archangel Michael a lot, but I did Raphael and just kind of imagined green energy. And my mom had a green light float into her room, and she's like 70 something, but she said it was a green alien. But I mean, I don't know what it was, but it was kind of a neat little synchronicity that was interesting, which I needed the boost, the positivity, that's for sure. And her hand's doing better, so that's good. But it's just interesting, these things. I know at first you were into to Wicca and stuff like that, and it grew to shamanism, right?
Yeah, yeah, and I've had a couple of interactions with kind of the fairy realm or the fey realm when I was deep into Wicca, which was pretty neat, including seeing um, a, a a small being. She's probably maybe 2 feet tall. Run across a creek that I was at, and like the water splashing and everything, and it was like pretty mind blowing. It wasn't an animal at all. It was like a little person, little guy. But and I had other, I've had other occurrences and things like that were more kind of on the periphery, not really direct, but in shamanic, in my shamanic training, it just all clicked for me. I think it was just probably encountering the right person. It was the right time in my life, and just engaged in the kind of practices that would just work for me at the time that um, I started, I started really seeing things like crazy. And you mentioned, reading something and it kind of coming into your life. What's really interesting is when I started my shamanic training, I had a dream about these beings in red that were kind of like the counter to the men in black phenomenon. So, the men in black are the guys that come and try to get people to forget or to, tamp down any evidence of a supernatural phenomenon. But I had a dream about these beings that were dressed in red, and they were all trying to like get people to remember and to like promote these like supernatural occurrences happening and for people to remember and be involved in it. And I ended up writing a book about it. I just made up a story with these characters and these beings, but I wrote it during my shamanic training, and I tried to include all this stuff that I was learning and these other occurrences that were happening to me in the book. And then I find out, a few years later, I meet a curandero in Peru who says that these beings are completely real. These beings in red. And they have like an ancient legacy behind them, and that he's even met some of them before. And I was on a podcast just even a couple of months ago, and I brought that up. I ended up getting like 20 different messages from people who have had similar encounters of these beings in red. And I'm just like, what? I've never heard of this phenomenon before, and I thought I just like kind of made it up. And so it's another one of those weird things of like, fiction and nonfiction aren't like, I mean, they're kind of the same thing, and they bleed in and out of one another, and you have to like not have like these boundaries set up really, and be ready for the unreal. It's
Were they
really.
human-like or humanoid, or
Oh
what?
yeah, for me, they're very human-like in the encounters that people have sent me. Some people even sending me like drawings that they did of them. It's just human beings dressed in like red clothing, And in my book, they're like in red suits, like kind of like the Men in Black, just wear black suits, kind of like that. But the and I've read in even some folklore. This is what triggered when you were talking about like the Celtic and the Fae and everything. I've read in some folklore that, like in Ireland and some other areas, that there are some beings of the fairy realm that are dressed in red that kind of act as intermediaries between the unseen realm and the mundane realm. So
Cool.
it's weird. I'm thinking about. My wife told me I should, maybe start collecting all of this evidence together and try to compile a book about it, like a real book, like a nonfiction book about this phenomenon.
Definitely sounds interesting for sure. One of my big ones was the being of lights, the light beings, and I was in Silver Lake here in Marianna, Florida, and I had been watching some Watchword Bible DVD thing. I grew up Christian. I kind of go everywhere now, but seeing beings of light, it definitely verifies that there's some kind of Christ consciousness or something maybe linked to the sun, where that's where they get their energy, the source, or something like that. But anyway, something told me to go outside and look towards the house, and I went out there and looked towards my house, and two beings of light left my home like they were inside of it, flew through the roof. I was completely sober, and they flew into the heavens. And it was just like two glowing beings of light. And I've seen them in many other times. I've seen them on psychedelics before. There's one time me and a friend were tripping, and we both saw a being of light, like a big light being on a cloud going like this, because we had just done it, and he happened to be driving, but it was not that far from the house, 5 minutes on a country road or something. But it was kind of like it was saying, I don't know if it was saying no, 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 but we both saw it at the same time. It's just like a big giant being of light standing on a cloud top, and you're like, do you see that? Yes, do you see that? And I've been trying to figure out what those things are. But an interesting thing, was it Don Oscar? I have trouble saying his last name. Starts with a Q. Quasimodo, or he's been on the show.
Don Oscar Miro Quesada.
Yes, that's it. He's been on the show. It's been a long time, but he said down there in South America, they would gather and have like little celebrations and watch them in the sky, and he has video of them.
Yep.
So I was like, wow, okay, that makes me feel better. So I'm
Mhm.
completely nuts. And so has that come up at all? Beings of light in any of your stuff? Have you seen them?
Yeah, I
Or
mean, Don
stories?
Oscar is actually one of my teachers.
Oh, cool, cool.
And so definitely there's like that lineage there of those beings of light showing up. So a lot of times when we did shamanic ceremony, we would have, lights show up in the sky. Not necessarily figures, although some people would see them sometimes. I did the first time I actually ever did San Pedro and was in a San Pedro ceremony. I That was the most relevant experience I ever had of a being of light before. And it was it was definitely feminine, and she was huge. She was so tall she even extended past the ceiling. And came right to me and had this like amazing encounter with me. I don't think I could really explain it with the English language, this encounter. And what blew me away is the curandero, um, at who was facilitating, was asking me who that was. Who was, so who was that being? Like, he was assuming it was like one of my primary guides, which she has become one of my primary guides. But that was like this huge confirmation, like you're saying that, like, someone else saw that too, and it was the curandero who saw and facilitated that ceremony, who saw her, and she's become a primary guide of mine, and she's very connected with the stars. She's very always luminous and bright. There's always some kind of calming presence when she comes in, but also like terrifying, if that makes sense. Like a terrible beauty kind of like presence to
Yes.
her. And I've never had that much of a physical encounter with her since, but I do bring her in whenever I do my work and I do ceremony and ritual. I bring her in dream time, and I have had some encounters. Um, with her like in dream time and stuff, but nothing as solid as that particular experience. It was pretty incredible. But she's always provided this kind of healing guidance for me my whole life, and has always been. I mean, I guess you could almost say like a guardian angel um, type phenomenon. Most definitely.
And a lot of mine, it's like they're just kind of floating in the heavens like a star, but is it a star or is it them? Or it's
Right.
almost like it seems like I know I came across something in a Jeffrey Mishlove book by an astronomer, and it said some stars are indeed deities. And I've
Mhm.
interviewed Jeffrey Mishlove, and it's like the sight, and that's like I could look into the heavens and see them. Seems like when I was younger they were more clear, but now it's like I still see them, but it seems more like a Sims game, like you're looking into another reality where maybe that's where we all project when we go to sleep, and you go there when you die too. But there's definitely that quantum realm, and I've been able to see into that. And then some of the light beings experience have been more personal. Like I remember sitting Indian style in a driveway and just seeing one go through the sky like it was like Superman, like something out of a freaking comic book or something, like just fly through the sky and you see it.
Mhm.
And I guess when it comes to that, you said starlight. Have you had experiences where you stare into the heavens and see stuff like that
Oh
with the
yeah.
sight and things like that? I have that a lot.
Oh yeah, a ton, a ton. I mean, ever since even back when I was a kid. I mean, like I said, I grew up out in the country in the Ozarks. We saw the stars all the time. There was no city light, and I mean, it was almost a weekend occurrence. We would sit out, and there would just be all kinds of strange phenomenon. If you sit out, if I bet you, if anybody had access to the sky, no matter where you're at, if you just sat out all night and were just had no city light around, you would see all kinds of crazy stuff. And I mean weird, weird stuff like going on in the sky, like happening every single night. One of
Especially,
my favorite places to go is the San Luis Valley in Colorado, which is huge with UFO phenomenon. You've got the Great Sand Dunes there, and there's just like all kinds of crazy stuff happening. But yeah, and it's weird that phenomenon really seems to get triggered by um, people's like sense of consciousness as well. Like you were saying, like it kind of feels like that they may not even be extraterrestrial at times. Like it's this like weird quantum phenomenon that is existent. That John Keel, who did the Mothman prophecies, who wrote
yes.
the Mothman prophecies. One thing about that book that really always stuck out to me, because that is a lot of people think that book is just about the Mothman, and it's not. It is
No,
primarily about
but
UFO phenomenon, and he says that it's absolutely a terrestrial phenomenon,
mhm.
meaning it's like it's happening here on this planet, and it's not that it's like weird Star Trek star beings from billions of light years away. That always like rang so true to me whenever I first read that. And so whenever I have these experiences, I just like I really try to just ground myself and like and try to understand that this is a phenomenon that's happening with Mother Earth, and it's somehow like a part of her consciousness, just like we are a part of her consciousness as well. And part of me just likes the mystery of it too.
One of my big experiences, and it was on Halloween night, and yes, I was partying and doing whatever. Now I'm just medicinal weed. I quit kratom recently. I have arthritis and stuff, and I quit that. That sucks coming off of.
Mhm.
I don't want to do it anymore. But as far as the only thing I do now is medicinal weed and nicotine vape. I'm about to get rid of that. But that was a lot wilder in my younger days when my dad died and experimented. When he told me when I was alive, if you ever did drugs, I was going to shoot you, and he would have if he thought. And so I never did them. When he died, I did them. I was like little Scarface for 2 years. but but anyway, now it's just medicinal weed and a nicotine vape, which I'm trying to get rid of nicotine vape. But I don't really do it as much as from other people. Like I've had 2 bottles of that stuff. I swear to God, it's lasted me like a year. Like I don't even know how it's doing. Like it's not even. I must not do it that much, but it seems I do it every day, so it must not be a lot anyway. But one of my big experiences was I saw some reptilian serpentine like beings around in a lake, and they were not physical, but it was almost like they were astral. And uh, at first, I was like, oh my God, fallen angels, the devil, Faustian pact, I'm gone, because I was from Georgia. You know, my dad was a preacher. Seeing something like that, and because I can remember the thought process, like, oh my God, it's a fallen angel. And but anyway, they were telling me like I love you and dance and write and weird stuff that was positive. So it was like Deepak Chopra, but a reptilian. But anyway, when I see the picture on your book, and I see some of the Mayan and Aztec kind of like I have these Oracle Mayan wood glyph cards. It reminds me of them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they're reptilians in the reptilian alien sense or what. One was kind of like a Hydra, one was humanoid. Very weird. Like that's all I know. And it's like just thinking about them, they know it or something still. But
Yeah.
what is that on your book? And have you had any reptilian type situations?
The image on my book is a frieze from the temple of Chavin de Huantar. So the San Pedro tradition that I was trained in dates back thousands of years. They even dated it back as far as 2000 BC. And that this specific temple that this frieze comes from, Chavin de Huantar, was a ceremonial temple where they would initiate individuals in these underground canals, using the San Pedro sacrament. And there was actually an article I just saw the other day that they found extra tunnels deep inside that are even older than what we originally thought. So this tradition is now going back into like the 6,000 year range. But that particular individual, and there are many, figures like that, like on the cover of my book. This one is very special to me. I happen to even have it tattooed on my body because it's supposed to be the emblem of like the what we call the Wachuma god. Wachuma is the San Pedro spirit. And so that individual is holding a cactus stalk, and so of the San Pedro, and he's using it as a staff, as a way to be able to put his stake in the ground, as an individual, as a human being, that is fully integrated. And what I mean by that is that individual is actually a mix between a jaguar, a serpent, and a condor. And each one of those animals are representative of the 3 realms that I talked about: the serpent of being of the lower realm, the jaguar being of the middle realm, and the condor being of the upper realm. And so this person was able to integrate all these different parts and pieces, because each one of those animals represents like personality aspects within the human being. And normally those aspects are kind of split and fragmented. And the job of the shamanic being is to be able to integrate all these pieces into a singular whole. And that's what that being is. And it looks fierce, and it looks like, crazy. But when you meet like shamanic beings, shamanic practitioners, or like you had encounter with these like reptilian beings, or other, people have had encounters with, fairy realm, they can seem fierce and upsetting or like jarring at first. The first time we've ever have any kind of supernatural encounter, when I saw that witchy figure in the window when I was a young tyke, it was like, oh my God, it was freaky, but it's only proven to be this like medicine over time. The other realms aren't that like scary, behind when you get behind the symbol. So I've never encountered any kind of weird reptilian stuff like that. And I'm always when I hear about the reptilian phenomenon, I'm not saying that people don't have these experiences, but I also just get a little leery, because to me, the serpent is a powerful medicine healer. It's a symbol of wisdom, and it's a
Yeah.
symbol of change and transformation. And I just don't. When we
Some
say
of it gets pretty stupid. Some of it, definitely.
yeah, but there's also I've heard some really interesting, convincing encounters from some people too, and so I know there's just this phenomenon, and I hope that people don't in their minds keep demonizing like the reptilian nature of the world
Hmm.
that we live in, because there is an important aspect of that does provide medicine, and it can be harsh and scary. I don't like
Yeah.
snakes, like, for real, in real
Yes.
life, but they provide wisdom.
Some of the thoughts on reptilians can be genocidal.
Yeah.
Well, my experience with reptilian beings, I mean, my approach to all of this is somewhat different than what you've been talking about.
Mhm.
I don't think it really is, but it has a lot to do with the fact that because of the nature of the growth that I've done and where I've been in my life, it's really important for me that everything be very grounded in actual physical reality in some way. And so it's really important that I not use drugs or not do any that kind of thing when I'm doing this work.
Mhm.
That's not to say that I haven't done drugs or, I haven't had all of the experiences that Jeffrey has had. I have fewer experiences, but they are very significant. And the way that what I guess I kind of started using. I started in these things using the Seth material more than anything else.
Mm.
And what I recommend to people is that if shamanism seems a little far out to them for one reason or another, the Seth material is a really good place to begin, because a lot of what you're doing there is working with dreams and working with visionary materials in a way that's very practical in
Mhm.
an everyday fashion. Um, but the way this works for me is, I mean, I have actually had a vision, two visions and dreams of reptilian beings. And so, and they're snakes, they're horned serpents specifically, which in Northern American, indigenous tradition are, it depends on the nation, but some nations consider them to be kind of questionable, and other nations consider them to be, if you can get their medicine, it's really, really significant. But I've had two really important dreams and waking vision experiences, and my experience of them is that they are connected to the fundamental powers of the earth itself, to those powers that actually help to maintain the physical structures of the earth. And that's why we experience them, that's why we're here, but that's also why I think they are scary to people, because they have a specific job to do, which is to maintain the physical structures of the earth, and human being, and their principal interest is not human beings. We want everything to be interested in us,
Right.
and their principal interest is the earth and not human beings. And so
Right.
that's a real threat to our ego, and so we freak out about that. We have a hard time with that. And so you have stories, at least here in the Northeast, you have stories of horned serpents, which the Munsee called Bixiksuk, that they would actually, some of them would actually ally themselves with human beings, and others would just take human beings that they liked, and so that and I guess what's important for me to emphasize is that for me, these stories aren't just symbolic.
Mhm.
They actually are windows and indicators of actual realities that are present, that interface with us all the time.
Right.
And I mean, as you were talking, I thought about this particular artifact, which I've had for a really long time, and you can't see it probably. I'm going to have to bring it. See how it's got this spiral pattern on it?
Oh, yeah.
That spiral pattern is very specific. A beaver did that. Okay. And so this came to me when I first moved to the Hudson Valley. I was here probably maybe less than 4 months, and I was out walking with a friend, and we were walking on the FDR. No, what is it? No, the Vanderbilt estate. We were walking on the Vanderbilt estate, which is this big, huge mansion estate that is now like a state park that you can walk in. The Vanderbilts owned it at one time, and we were walking down by a stream, and as we came around a path, there was a beaver standing, a beaver just right there, and beavers are large animals if they're adults. And we walked, and it startled us, and we startled it, and it looked up at me, looked right at me, just like right in my eyes, and it had this in its hands like this. They hold it like this, and they do this business, right? Had it in his hand, and it just looked at me, and it was done. See, it's got like bite marks here. It was a green stick, and it looked at me, and it just went like this. It just dropped it, and then it just kind of went and walked off. And I came up and I saw it, and it's like the most amazing work. I mean, it's like it's got like a beaver's had its lips all over this, and I took it as a welcome. Because here the beaver means community. The beaver is a protector. It also moves between worlds, the worlds of the water and the worlds of the land, and it's connected to trees, obviously. And so I've used it ever since, and that's how I gain my. I don't call myself a shaman, because to me that's a term. I've been trained by indigenous teachers here. I've also been trained by Northern European teachers, but I don't call myself a shaman, because for me that's very culturally specific.
Right. Yep. Same
So I know you talk about that in your book, and I understand marketing,
mm-hmm.
but to me it's stuff like this that is just as real as any vision of a being of light. Don't get me wrong. I've had my UFO experiences. I've had ghost experiences. I've had all kinds of experiences from time to time. I had a Bigfoot experience, actually, which scared the living shit right out of me. And that's not the F word. And I don't recommend it particularly to people, because I get the sense that we're not supposed to see them all the time. And so chasing after them and trying to run them down with FLIR, cameras and stuff, that's not something that indigenous people would do. That's just really weird to me. But, this to me is just as real as a vision, what the beaver gave me, so, and what happened a couple summers ago when I needed a sign. I needed a sign that I was headed in the right direction. I went outside on the porch and found stuck in some of the planking on the porch. I found this, which is a pin feather of a bald eagle.
Cool.
So it's kind of like, well, because they fly over our house all the time. But the point is that, I didn't have to go out looking for that. It came to me.
Right.
So, those kinds of, I think the important thing that my teachers have taught me, though, is, because I didn't know how to do this before, and now I do it all the time, is learning how to read the signs that are just always there.
Yeah.
So, like, I have a teacher who has helped me understand birds and the signs that birds give me. And they do give me signs. And other animals or weather stuff. All of those things are indicators of larger patterns that if you know how to read them correctly, you really don't need to do anything too outlandish. Right. The information's around you all the time.
Yep.
And so that's sort of what I keep my stuff on. I have an altar. I have all this stuff that's evolved over time that people have given me and stuff. but it's very important that I not look for the big experience. That's just really not what I'm about. Is the I've had a few big experiences, which I will tell people sometimes about if they need to know one, if they need to know that they occur.
Right.
You know what I mean? But I'm not out for the big experience. It's enough for me to get through my day. But beaver is good. This is good.
That is really good medicine. That's wonderful.
I use this all the time. So
Looks cool.
Anyway, by the way, I meant to tell you, I'm from Kansas too. I was born and raised there most of my life. I lived in Kansas City until about, I guess it's been 17 or 18 years ago, something like that.
Oh, okay.
When I finally moved to the East Coast, I got my PhD at KU.
All right.
So, I'm very familiar with the communities, or the various communities that you're talking about. I was sort of involved with the neo-pagan community for a while. I was one of the founding members of the festival that is now of the community that is now called the Gaia community.
Oh yes, yes.
I was when the very first meeting of the Council of the South Wind, which was the kind of the egg that gave birth to what that eventually became. I was in that first group, and I'm also been very involved with the Sufi community there, and in fact still know a lot of people there. My teacher is still in Kansas City. My Sufi teacher.
Excellent.
So, but the other thing you must say, it's not just the metaphysical community. If people want to know one of the hearts of Kansas City, the Kansas City area, they need to go to the Mexican restaurants, of which there are a healthy variety. I've lived in New York now for this long, and I've yet to find a decent Mexican restaurant that is not just simply glorified Tex-Mex.
There's one on every corner.
Yeah, I mean, and really good ones too.
Yeah.
And especially if you go into the Argentine district, it's just fabulous.
Yeah.
So it's one of those unknown secrets of Kansas City, which I tell, other than barbecue, which
right. That's not a secret.
Yeah, I'm a huge barbecue fan. So but anyway, so
I love it. It's a good city.
It's a decent city. I just can't deal with the heat anymore, so that's why I moved it.
Jeff and I were just talking about that.
I grew up on a farm in Kansas part of my life, so it's like I'm so done with this heat. I'm so over it,
Yeah.
So
it sucks for sure. It's already terrible here. I'm already getting ate by things.
Well, we do get eaten by things. I've got like black fly bites and stuff. We do get eaten by things, but and it can get to 90 degrees and very occasionally higher than that, but it'll stay for 1 or 2 days, not for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Or like all of July and August until you want to die.
Right. Yeah. August is brutal here.
August is brutal.
It's starting to extend into September too, so we're getting almost 2 full months. And sometimes you can't even have a Halloween without sweating.
God.
Crazy, which is just ridiculous.
Right.
Man. In Florida, we'll be lucky for a cool breeze in November. Sometimes late October. It just depends. Lately, it seems since the Earth's wobbling and magnetic stuff, we got some more cold. So, but it's colder winter and hotter summers. But Daniel, what's your power animal, dude?
So really, I attribute my closest relationship is with any kind of feline animal. Cats, and most specifically the jaguar, has been the primary animal that's been like my strongest ally through my work. I have a connection with other animals, but we don't get like assigned. There's no like assigned totemic like power animal. It's just we use all animal life, and whatever comes to you in dreams or journey work or whatever is what becomes your ally and working close. And for me, that the jaguar and the Peruvian tradition is very much a being that is an intermediary between the two realms because he exists here on this realm, in the middle world. But for me, also, it's it's a being of great balance and is very limber. Lands on their feet, has sharp eyesight and sharp senses, and um, I love all cat energy. I just like if you have a cat, I'm happy.
We just got a little kitten, and
Well,
it's
well,
like,
our cat has a house.
Do I?
Our cat has a house. In other words, there's a cat here, but it's not ours.
Right,
He owns
right.
everything. Nothing's
That's
personal.
true.
You know.
Yeah,
So,
we're just here in her space.
right, exactly. But we're here to be the thumbs that feed her.
Yep, yep, for
so,
sure.
so when it comes to shamanic sight, I know when I've had some of my experiences where I see things, it feels like I say the great spirit or God putting a hand on you, and they kind of like something showing you. Is that what is your experience with the sight? Is it like Beastmaster, or to me it feels like a almost like a hand on your head, and then you'll see something like in the heavens or whatever. Then later go out, it'll be dull. It's like that hand went away for a while and it'll come back another time. But that's what it seems like for me.
Yeah. So I was taught that shamanic sight, which I was trained like the term that we use is vista. It just manifests as something completely unique and different for every person. So for some people, it might just be like an intuition or a feeling, and other people, I know some people that see colors. I know some people that like see stuff all the time. For me, it's always just been, um, really just like sitting in the quiet, and I feel the motions by just sitting in a quiet, which is why I like to be out in nature a lot, and just sitting out and allowing the natural world to just speak to me. Like a lot of like what Wham was speaking to, earlier, of just letting the world around you, speak in its natural setting. And like that's where I feel like I get all the messages that I need and any of the information that means the most to me. But I do know individuals that have, and I've had some cases of like interesting things of sometimes seeing stuff or whatever, but mostly it's just in this like space of quiet, for me in the natural world, and just like what are the birds doing as they're going across the sky? What's the sound of the trees? And what do they have to say? What's the like the blowing of the grass in the wind? Like what's the message there? That's for me, that's like for how shamanic sight sort of manifests.
What book was it that was noted from Graham Hancock for Author of the Month? Which book of that was of yours?
Oh, the Shamanic Kabbalah, that was my book on my experiences with Kabbalah. And it was really about kind of relating my training in Kabbalah and correlating it with the shamanic path that I was on and seeing all of these different connections, in the two modalities, and kind of bringing them together into a cohesive whole for myself. It was like really for me and my wife, and the initiation we went through with Kabbalah together, and the way we kind of created our own curriculum based upon our shamanic training. Um, and I ended up just writing it all down, and it manifested as a book. And Graham Hancock, out of nowhere, displayed it on his website, and he appreciated some of the different items that I talked about regarding the ancient architecture of some of the temples and how they relate, to different symbols in the Western mystery tradition, and just he's always interested in seeing how all of these different cultures across the planet have like interconnections among them, woven through them. So that's probably how it came up on his. I don't know how it came on his radar, but that's certainly why he chose it. So that was kind of cool to get a message from Graham Hancock.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
another one of your books, Terrence McKenna, Machine Elves 101. That sounds pretty fascinating. I know Terrence McKenna was fascinating. Still is, I'm sure, wherever he's at. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that was a good one. Did he play a lot into your teachings?
Yeah, I was really into Terrence early in my shamanic training. I've since kind of grown out of him, but I mean, I devoured his books. I would listen to his YouTube videos a lot. I really liked seeing him speak or hearing him speak. But yeah, that book was interesting. I was tasked by Evolver Publishing to write kind of a quick little bio of him and his life and his work and what it all means and represents, and got to interview his brother Dennis. And since they Evolver kind of went out of business, and I got the rights to the book back, and my goal, I've tried to connect with the Terrence estate to see if they wanted to do some kind of new revision or anything like that, but I haven't been able to get a hold of them yet. But I don't want to reissue it at all because it's not available anymore. But I don't want to reissue it until I get their blessing.
They're busy tripping, but they'll be back to you shortly.
Growing
I'm kidding.
something, that's for sure.
But let me see. And, a lot of it is just, I know a lot of people say, I've talked to, I know Michael Harner talked about drumming a lot and some of the experiences in there where they didn't do drugs and they used drumming to have these experiences. Seem pretty intense. And I've been messing with some drums, and I haven't had anything that strong, but I'm still willing to try. But I know some of the stuff I've read from Harner is pretty, uh, extraordinary with drumming experiences. Have you had drumming experiences and that are extraordinary?
That's my primary form of journeying is with drums. The most amazing experience I ever had with a drum was, oh, Wham! You might be familiar with the Kansas City Pipe Circle community. Okay, so every year they host a dance called Stone Dance, which is
Yep.
yeah, by medicine or medicine teacher of mine, Stumbling Deer facilitates,
Yep.
and they so that's cool that we have that connection. But they that was the first time I ever encountered like a mother drum, like powwow style mother drum, and
Big,
which
huge, big, huge, big, huge drum.
yes, huge, and just they just resonate through your body. But I was very quickly invited to come and even join on the drum, and the the power of a mother drum when people are pouring medicine into that, and the rhythm and the beat and the way that vibration just courses through your body. It's like you start feeling this pulse of Mother Earth itself. I completely, my sense of self the first time I did that was completely gone. And all I felt was the mother's heartbeat underneath me, just boom, 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 boom. And I don't really recall much of like that first um, that first moment, that first time, other than it was just pure unbridled joy. It was
Right.
pure unbridled joy.
Now, see
Um,
what they do in the Sufi community. If I mean, and Jeffrey, I can give you more information on this. Is that there's a very, very complex, and this is in all Sufi communities. Really, there's a really complex tradition because a lot of the drumming traditions and chanting traditions in Sufism come out of Central Asia, and so it's a combination of Arabic, African, Indian, and Central Asian stuff that's all just sort of been merged. And so there's some very complex ways in which there are schools in which you can learn this. I mean, I don't really know a little of it, where you're taught uh, how to use different types of rhythms to achieve different types of states. And so, where I've experienced this is in what's called zikr, which are these large groups of people that where you have drumming and other instruments, but everybody's also chanting and moving in specific ways, but you're moving in unison. And it's very much like circle dancing in indigenous communities here, except that it's much more complex in a lot of ways. And the rhythms are more complex. And it produces, I mean, the most extraordinary changes of consciousness that I've had have been in those settings, because basically every part of you is being occupied with rhythm, and you're singing and you're moving, and it's not just you, it's everybody in a group. What you were saying about kind of the group experience, everybody in the group doing this as one. And it's really, I've had a couple of really amazing experiences that I did not expect at all. You know what I mean? And where your body is, you just feel your body being transformed, and you experience levels of hearing and seeing that you wouldn't have otherwise. And there's absolutely no altering chemicals except what your body is producing involved. You know.
Yep. Yeah, it's beautiful.
It is amazing. You know.
So I know you have a section, Cosmos and Consciousness, and one thing I've learned about all these experiences in this show, through one experience, when I first started doing this, I was doing these little press conference with no audio interviews in a chat room where people would just show up and you type questions to them and they would answer, like Stanton Friedman, UFO nuclear physicist. He's passed now, but back in the day. And at one point I was having trouble getting interviews, and I said a prayer, and then I had a crazy UFO sighting where I saw these red like energy orbs in the sky, and it's almost like they seen that I saw them, and my brother and nephew saw them as well. And then I told that story and ended up on a radio show for the first time, telling that story about seeing those UFOs. And then I started getting interviews with people like Nick Pope and all kinds of different people. The guy from UFO Hunters, William Burns. And next thing you know, I'm on the phone with Stanton Friedman, helping him through the chat and stuff like that. And it was like raising consciousness, like something appeared to show that I was doing something to raise consciousness, and it seems that's what a lot of this is about. Do you agree with that? And what can you tell us about Cosmos and consciousness? I know it's a big one.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's what it's all about, is just evolution and the raising of consciousness. I feel like that we're kind of all probably just, we're all in a creative experiment together. I mean, for me, we are literally biologically children of the earth. And so, I mean, we came from her, we came out of her, and we evolved into where we're at now. And so for me, that means that we are kind of, we and everything else, every tree, rock, lizard, whatever, we're all at the forefront of this consciousness of the planet together. And so we're all parts and pieces of that collective. And so I don't think that there's any end state necessarily, like, oh, here's this like stage of evolution that we're all going to evolve to, and we're all going to be light beings and whatever. I'm not sure it's that coordinated. I don't know. But I do know that it's, evolution is important. It's important for all of us to keep growing and trying to get better and trying to, refine ourselves and to, make ourselves more whole if we can. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be perfected like super beings anytime soon. And probably not even in our lifetimes. And I don't think it matters. I think what matters is just the journey of like trying that out and experimenting and trying to have fun with that. So yeah, I don't know if that was the answer you were going for.
Yes.
But that's like where my brain is at.
One of the big things that when I was going through chemo, I was in the comics and I prayed to be a superhero. And I was 17 and, it felt like I was croaking. At one point, I even got a gun and was going to shoot myself during it after losing a testicle and chemo. And I heard that Nirvana Kurt Cobain Lithium song and I couldn't do it. It was
Mm.
like all my friends are in my head, yada yada yada. And I wrote the band like a little fanboy. I'd never written a band before, and told them their song saved me or whatever. Next thing you know, he shot himself. I was like, man, come on. But the thing is, when I said that superhero prayer, something happened, and that's where some kind of shamanic power thing happened. Something said, okay, we're going to show you some things, and I'm still waiting for the symbiote suit or whatever, and it's going to be
I
a
don't.
long wait.
I don't think it will ever be that literal.
Yeah, I know that's one of the things I struggle with. Like you see these school shootings that just happen, it's insane, and you're like,
Yeah.
come on, God, we need a superhero or something to intervene in this. It's
I,
just so
I,
sick, and
I think it's
you're
just
in a
gonna have to
bad
be
place.
us. I think we're gonna have to
Yeah,
be it. You know, that's
it's
one thing I
hard.
do. I do try to, make sure I check myself and that, like, I'm not waiting for something or someone else to like come and like, to
Fix it.
change it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, fix it for me. Like I have to, with my being, try to be the best person that I can be always, and just every person that I interact with, like hopefully their life is, better, changed for the better if possible.
Definitely. I noticed you have some comics on your website that, and a lot of those fit in with the Psychonaut, Simon
Yeah,
Death Chronicles, and Psychonaut Presents.
Psychonaut Presents is actually a memoir of some of my shamanic training, just done in comic book form.
Cool.
So it's just little segments of some of like the things that I was put through, and had a lot of, it was just kind of a way for me to, process some of that. So, and Simon Myth Chronicles is, it's a fiction tale. He's kind of like a modern day Gandalf, in a world where magic is legal, it's real, and he works for an agency that kind of helps, regulate magical happenings in the world, and having a lot of fun with that too. So
And then I've gotten into comics, and now I'm trying to run from them because it's just too addictive and too big of a mess. And definitely, but there's some fascinating things though for sure. Like there's one comic, Northlanders. It's like a Norse Viking comic. There's
mhm.
just so many cool ones. Once you get drawn in, you're like, man, I need to get. It's like crack or something. Yeah,
It's a wonderful medium. It
yeah.
is addicting, but I love it. There's just like there's a comic out there for every person, no matter what you're interested in, no matter your age level. There's something out there for everyone, and that's what I love about it. It's not a genre; it's a medium, for sure.
What is MVCC? It says coming soon. MVCC.
That is so. We've already kind of, come out with that, but that is a collective, new vision comics collective, collaboration between me and my childhood friend, where we always wanted to make comics together. And that's more of like my traditional kind of like superhero kind of stuff. But it's a collective group of comics that I make with him, and we usually put those out at, comic conventions and things like that, because that's where that market is. So
Definitely, and I've never been to any of those, but I know comic collecting gets crazy for sure, no doubt about it.
mm-hmm.
And so, what are you planning on? Oh, first off, we got about what 25 minutes. Are you okay with that, or I mean, I didn't really discuss the time with you or anything.
um,
You
I've
need a
got a
break?
I've got a few minutes. Yeah, I didn't know how long this was going to go. I thought we were going to be about an hour or so. So,
Okay.
where
Well,
where are you at?
well, we in five till, but we can
Okay.
start closing out if you need to go. It's okay. I mean, it's not a problem at all. I was just that's why I checked mostly.
Okay, yeah, I
But
appreciate that. I appreciate it.
yeah, and as far as what do you have planned in the future, book wise? Is there something you're working on next?
I'm not sure, because I've put a lot of books out in the past year, and I'm really tired. For sure. So, I am working on my Simon Myth comic, so people can be stay tuned to future issues of that, because I'm just enjoying making that right now. I am interested in possibly making a nonfiction book, like investigative book, about these people in red, these beings in red. and trying to get more stories from people on that, and doing a little bit more research. But I got a lot more research to go. I haven't really done a deep dive into, any mythologies or folklore or indigenous tales regarding that sort of thing. So I definitely need to
Yes.
get cracking on that. But that is one of the next things that's probably on my purview for sure.
I have to check out your horn god book. That's always fascinating. I'm a Capricorn, so into those. I like horn gods, but but we appreciate it so much. It's been great having you on. Definitely keep us in the loop in the future, and we'll get you on again for sure. What's your website if you want to give it out?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, danielmollerweb.com. That's where people can find me. Daniel Moller Web.
Well, we appreciate it so much, and this has been some transformation, and most of my shaman guests. I know you. Most of you are into remote healing. If you send out thunderbolts of healing, send me one. I could use one, and we appreciate it
right.
so much, man. It's been great. Wham sent me one recently, and I felt the zap. But the more the merrier lately.
I'll send you more zaps. How's
Yeah,
that?
I need them. Thor, send me a zap. But have a good weekend, Daniel, and thanks so much.
All right, you too. Thanks a lot, guys.
All
It was
right,
fun.
take
Bye.
care. All right, everybody. And next week is Al going back, native horror author from Florida. I'm really looking forward to that. That's going to be a good one. I've been trying to get him for a while, and I finally got him, trapped him. The old coyote, I got him. His last book was Coyote Rage. It's about this coyote trying to get rid of the humans and bring the fur feather fin folks back. It's pretty good.
Sounds good to me.
He gets really deep with some native horror for sure. No doubt about it. And I know he's friends with Joe R. Lansdale, and looking forward to that one. Let me see what else is going on scheduling wise to pull this thing out here. Ra Costado, that's June 17th. It's a lot of weird alien stuff. No, he's on Leak Project a lot. That's where I saw him at.
Weird alien stuff.
Yes.
Is any alien stuff not weird? This is what I want to know.
It's all weird. And then, yeah, it should be interesting. It gets pretty deep with some stuff. I saw him on Leak Project. Well, I didn't watch it, but I saw the titles. Let me look. I'll just read some of it real quick. Let's see. Leak Project. Let me see. I don't know what's up with YouTube lately. Every time you go to it, you're unsubscribed. Every time. Everything you subscribe to, you might as well not. You're unsubscribed as soon as you go back to every channel. And I think it's a fluke or something. I don't know. Or they all hate me. I don't think it's that, but it's just weird. But he was just on Vedic Wars and Technology of the Gods. Keeper of the Souls, and found altars to the horn god of the underworld. Eye of the Pyramid, and elite Nephilim bloodlines. Origins of the Vatican, Guardians of the Underworld. So stuff like that. I'll have to remember those so I can ask questions revolving around that stuff. But and June 24th, Cliff Dunning. That's marijuana and the prostate. Bring your prostates. And
oh my God,
I'm nervous about that one.
Let
me see.
Why are you nervous about that one?
Won't know nobody messing with my prostate.
It's like nobody going up there.
That's right. Because I don't like to mix my weed with prostate. But anyway, July 1st, Jerry Sargent. That's a British dude that used to be like a criminal or something that uses energy of the stars. We reschedule him. Here's one that I made sure not to schedule you for. Donnie Brooke, wrestler from Georgia, Trump QAnon lover.
Ooh!
With Jay. I made sure Jay was there I think he still likes Trump for some dumb reason. I don't even know. I don't try to question it. It just makes me want to throw up. But both of them should make me want to throw up at the same time that night. But anyway, we were talking about Elvis and aliens. I'm sure I'll make fun of QAnon. But I figured if you were for that show, it would not be good. It would just be.
I would have to tear his head off.
Yeah. So I put Jay there so we could just laugh about that. I'll make fun of. I told the dude I don't like any of that stuff. I don't like it. Jay, I don't think Jay likes QAnon. I think he likes Trumpelgooch for some damn retarded reason. I have no idea why. Okay, and then July 15th, Dago de Oxy. It's like a Brazilian Santa Teria dude. You're there for that one. July 22nd, Granddaughter Crow, a native lady with a book from Llewellyn. Been getting a lot of Llewellyn. I'm working on July 29th. August 5th is Kate Johnson. That's I think that's like Celtic stuff, but I'm still working on stuff. But some lady wanted to come on about some egg that she made that you sit in and you have transcendental meditation. I don't know if I'm doing that one because you don't get a free egg. You just get a book. Now, if I got the free egg, maybe that's probably like a $10,000 egg. Some kind of egg she made where you go and I don't know. Hell if I know. I don't know if I'm doing that one. Just one of those things the publicist sent me. We're like, what the heck? I don't think I'm going to get a prototype egg. Some kind of egg you sit in, one of those meditation, Reiki light sound, yada, yada, yada things. And there's some other Llewellyn's just been sending me their catalog. So I've just been going wild through there. It was pretty cool. So just been sticking with that right now. And that's it so far. I'm working on it slowly but surely. And so your audiobook is out.
My audiobook is out.
Nice.
It is out indeed.
On Audible.
On Audible. And yep. And I think that I posted sort of a promo link to Church of Mabus Facebook page.
Okay,
so that if people go to that, then and they're not on Audible, they can still sign up for free and get a free copy of the book. They just have to make sure that they unsubscribe from Audible so they don't get charged in a month or 10 days or however long it is.
Yeah.
But if you use that link, you can.
I shared it as well. So
okay, good.
On both my pages. For sure. I've been watching Obi-Wan Kenobi.
And how's that been?
It's pretty good. It basically takes place after Anakin gets lava killed in the prequels and turns into Darth Vader.
Uh-huh.
So it's Darth Vader whining about that, and he's after Obi-Wan trying to track him down. But what's interesting in it, they have these inquisitors that's on the dark side, and they're looking for anyone that's force sensitive to basically enslave them to the dark side. So if you're force sensitive, they'll find you like the witches sort of, and they go after you. And Luke is a kid in it. Leia's a kid in it, which is kind of weird. It's like, because none of these people are going to die, So it's kind of, but it's not bad. It's good. The cool thing is James Earl Jones is back as Darth Vader as the voice. So Hayden Christensen plays him as the actor, but James Earl Jones is the voice. The voice is back. So that's pretty cool. It's worth watching. It's interesting, though, because it does seem like sometimes on the earth, like in my experience, when I kind of awakened to some stuff, spiritual things, it was like something kind of got sent out during my UFO stuff. And I saw that vehicle that the dude waved and it shot off. So it makes you wonder if there's like weird agencies like that get called out, that they don't want you to do that or something. Try not to get caught up in the light and dark, good and evil thing, but sometimes it's kind of hard not to. Like it kind of seems like there's something to it, but on some levels you're like, well, I don't want to get caught up in that. It's like a lot of BS. But when you see things like these school shootings and stuff, like God, it's just like, it just seems like there's something evil festering here, or maybe it's just stupidity. I don't know what it is, but it's like a battle not to get caught up in that mode of thinking, the whole light and dark and good and bad. And, it's like there's some kind of truth to it, but you can get carried away with it too much, I guess, and become a victim of it. Like, there's just so many different ways to it. But to me, it seems like there's something to it. But then I'm kind of try to use discernment not to get too wacky thinking about that kind of stuff, you know?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, there's been times where I felt like something's come to me and tried to do a Faustian pack, like come to the dark side and give you the Darth Vader package. I'm like, is this my imagination or something really here messing with me? You know? And then at the end, I'm like, Jesus in the light, I choose that. Jedi seem kind of, you know, shaman like to me. You know, there's something to that. Or, you know, there's connections to all that. The force sensitive. But
Yes.
Disney's really pumping out the Star Wars mayonnaise lately, but it's decent. Mandalorian was good. A Boba Fett show was pretty good, but they're doing a bunch more. And they're like, oh, they're gonna milk this till it's dead. Like there's so many shows, Andor, some other show, and some other show. Like there's too many, but I still like it. Hopefully they don't get too crappy. But you're dealing with Disney, so.
Yeah, that's true. That's
And
true.
Disney is a mess on many different levels. Uh, you ever watched any Jesse Ventura much?
No, I never have. No.
He was on some show, Opie and Andy, and got in a big fight with him that was insane. I always like the show Conspiracy Theory, but I mean, he seems a little goofy, but there was some weird, like if you look it up on YouTube, Opie and Andy gets in this giant fight and they look like they're about to kill each other in the radio room, and they were kind of being mean to him, and that the guy from the Opie and Andy show seemed like a little dick. Like what I saw from it, but I know I saw some of the conspiracy theory shows they did, and there's worse people. I know Alex Jones was just on Howard Stern. I didn't watch. I don't know if I'm going to, but I might just for kicks, just to see how stupid it gets. But I saw that on YouTube not too long ago, and so has anything been going on in the native circles more up there? Where things heating up for the summer?
Well, things are opening up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's they've just started doing the Friday night drum circles again, that meet I think once or twice a month, and there's a CSA called Seed Song Farm that is very much connected with the indigenous community, and they have started doing stuff again. You know, a lot of that's kind of all fell into abeyance because of the pandemic, and so powwows are starting to pop up again. Some of the older powwows that I'm familiar with, there's like 3 of them that I used to go to. They still aren't doing in-person stuff. They aren't, but there are some others that have started up. So I figure it's just a matter of time. You know, it's a matter of getting, you know, a lot of the organizers who have done this stuff in the past, you know, past couple of years, they've taken big financial hits, you know, on this. And so it's, you have to get the site, you know, you have to get the site, you have to get the vendors, you have to have a certain amount of capital to get all that out there. And, you know, it's going to take it a while for some of it to recover.
We were going to go to some, and then Florida, they just weren't any really, so we couldn't. Then we were going to go to Renaissance Festival. There weren't any. It's just like they all canceled. Hopefully, they'll start coming back at some point.
Right.
I've been to Renaissance Festival. I've never been to a powwow. I'd like to check one out and deal, you know, immerse myself in that energy, have that experience. So hopefully we can. I know I saw some walking by my mom's TV, some sports basketball crap, and there's people out there all together huddled up, and, which creeped me out. But and of course you got monkeypox now, so whatever's going on with that, it looks scary no matter which way you look at it. I've seen pictures of it. I had some breakout on my leg, and I don't think it's monkeypox, but something got me.
Oh, no, it's not monkeypox.
Monkeypox.
No, monkeypox is actually rather difficult to get. It's not that contagious. Everybody who's gotten it here has been in close physical contact, i.e., probably sexual contact, with an individual who had it. So, and in fact, from humans, that's how it's usually spread, is through sexual contact. So and it's unlike COVID in that we've known about this disease for 70 years. There's a vaccine that takes care of it. It's very similar to smallpox. It's not nearly as deadly as smallpox was, so it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
You know,
Not
it's like,
going to be the next COVID or
no,
anything.
it's not going to be the next COVID. It's a completely different virus. It's not going to be, you know.
Out for them monkeys. I get you. That is, as far as Obi-Wan Kenobi and the Force situation, it's just interesting that it's a prequel to the prequels, I guess, and all the kids are like Luke is a kid and Leia. It's a little weird, but it's still worth the watch. But yeah, Disney's definitely milking it. I know they have a Predator movie coming soon that looks interesting. It's called Prey. It's about a Comanche woman that has to fight that alien predator. It looks pretty good. I'm looking forward to that. Like takes place in Native American times, and that thing comes down to start hunting. And of course, the chick has to fight it. The native chick, for some reason, they were warrior native chicks, weren't they? Surely, I mean, they were like, I know they were Viking shield ladies, but they were like warrior women with natives.
There's some evidence of it, yeah. Certainly the Romans thought that the Germania, where we get the term German, were barbarians because the women often fought with the men, so that was proof of their barbarian nature. I mean, Tacitus talks about that, so I'm sure that there probably were. Now, during the Viking Age, I don't know, because the Viking Age is a very specific period in Scandinavia, and I don't. There. It looks like there may have been some women that did, but not very many. Because the whole culture was going through sort of a patriarchal kind of fit. But yeah, I mean, I think that there were some, you know.
I would figure. I mean, I could see them being pretty strong. As far as in the history, a lot of movies, since a lot of movies have strong female lead, and it's more prevalent now with a lot of stuff. But I mean, Aliens with Sigourney Weaver and things like that, and now this Predator movie, which is just called Prey, which I'm looking forward to. And Marvel just started a new Predator comic. It looks pretty interesting. I think Disney bought that or some crap. God, Disney, leave stuff alone. Unless, I mean, yeah, wasn't it Disney? I think. Let me see. Disney Predator. I believe. Yeah, it's Disney. They grabbed it. They own Alien too now. They're buying up everything. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to want to get some good guests lined up for the Halloween time. I'm doing August now, but got to get some good ones for that time of year. I have no idea. I'm sure it'll come to me. Usually, some books come out around that time that you can kind of choose from to get a good feel for that situation. Let's see what's going on. You remember Alan Greenfield?
Yeah, I know who he is. Yeah, I know who he is.
Yeah, I've interviewed him a long time ago. I just re-added him on my Facebook. All right, get him on. He's in Georgia. I know I interviewed him like when we first started, but it's been many moons since he's been on. But I might try to get him on at some point. He's in Atlanta. I'm sure he knows Little 5 Points and all that. Where I'm from, well, not Little 5 Points. I'm from Metro Atlanta. I've been to Little 5 Points. It's kind of like the weird hippie punk, weird place. But now it's been commercialized too much, probably to a point of wanting to throw up. I remember being there, and you'd see people dressed as Dracula walking around, and mohawks, and deadheads trying to sell you acid and stuff like that. But I've heard it's kind of tamed down. Trying to find UFO books, and I put UFOs in Beauty and Care on Amazon. Let me see. Wrong books. And Preston Dennett, I've interviewed him in written form, but never on the show. I don't really see a lot going on. in that area right now with UFO books. You come across anything new lately in UFOs or any kind of books that are interesting?
Honestly, the stuff that I've been reading about UFO stuff is a little bit different. I've been reading, let's see, I've been reading a book by James Carrion, who wrote a book called The Rosetta Deception, which is about the evidence that he's uncovered, and it's like declassified evidence from a number of different places, including in Europe and other sources. And he documents all this pretty explicitly, where he's talking about where there's clear evidence that intelligence services dating from before the end of World War II up until, I think he takes this up until the 70s and maybe a little bit before, a little bit after, were instrumental in helping to hoax and develop almost all of the major UFO events. Not every single UFO event, and certainly not every single individual experience that people have, but the ones that became the most famous, like the Tacoma Maori Island incident, the Roswell, Kenneth Arnold, the Pascagoula abduction case, the Gulf Breeze sightings, the ones that people look at, or even the Betty and Barney Hill case, which I'm looking at right now. So, and this is, he's not trying to say that there is no phenomena at all, or that people never have these experiences, but rather that the CIA has used the fact that there are these kinds of experiences that people have, that they've used that to try to cover up. Initially, it was for the Cold War. You know what I mean? And so then they found out that they could use it for other things. They could use it to, cover up testing of new equipment, or they could use it just to experiment to see how far certain types of disinformation could go, and that's been done a lot in South America, for example. So I'm just reading books like that to kind of get a different sense of some of the different things that may have been at play.
What's the title of it?
It's called The Rosetta Deception. You can only get it as an ebook on Amazon. He doesn't do the print version anymore. But it's called The Rosetta Deception, like the Rosetta.
Okay. I see it. Yeah. First, I thought you were talking about that dude from MUFON that quit, but that's not the same guy.
No.
I know there's a James Carrion that was in MUFON that he quit or something, some controversy.
Well,
but
this is a different guy.
I saved it. I'll have to check it out.
And then there's a couple of other books that I had heard of, but I just had not read yet. One of them is called something like "The Greys Have Been Deceived" or something like that, or it's basically kind of exposing the dark underbelly of the whole kind of Bud Hopkins, David Jacobs, Scott Carpenter school of hypnotizing abductees, and sort of, because a lot of their famous abductees, like Linda Corteil or I can't even remember the woman.
Jack Brewer, The Greys Have Been Framed, Exploitation in the UFO Community.
It's actually a very interesting book because it's not really about the phenomena itself. Because he's not even talking really about whether or not, people are actually being contacted or not. He's talking about the exploitation of the contactees and abductees by investigators.
Yes. And I actually had a relationship once with a Bud Hopkins patient. I called her Chicken Lady, and it turned into a nightmare. And the great thing is always kind of something unsettling about it. I don't know how to explain it, but anyway, Chicken Lady was someone I dated, and she ran off with a Satanist, and it was a bad situation. Chicken Lady, but she was a patient of his, and but but I'll have to check that book out. I've never heard of Jack Brewer.
Yeah, this is based on this book is based on a series of blogs and interviews that he did, and it's pretty good. I mean, it collects. Oh, Emma Woods. That's who I was talking about. Emma Woods is she's the abductee that took all of her material and put it online in order to expose David Jacobs.
Yes.
And so I think it's good. You know, it's something that needs to be talked about, because I actually talk about this a little bit in my dissertation, because I noticed this. I noticed this kind of weird dynamic that existed between abductees or people who were wanting to claim abduction in one way or another, and some investigators, particularly male ones. I saw an exchange between a putative abductee and John Mack at the Ozark UFO conference. I attended that a few times, and one time I actually met John Mack, and he and I sat next to each other and had this whole conversation. And he was given a presentation. He was really grateful that he was talking to another academic, so he could like talk to academic talk, you know what I mean, instead of abductee talk. And so we were sitting there having a conversation, a fairly abstract conversation about stuff, and this woman sort of came out of the audience and kind of sashayed down the aisle and like plopped herself in his lap and wrapped her arms around his neck and said something to the effect of, I want you to hypnotize me or something. And he was like mortified.
It wasn't Chicken Lady.
You know, I don't know if it was Chicken Lady or not. But the point is that, you know, it's this weird dynamic.
It's creepy.
Yeah, it was very creepy. It was very strange.
For sure. Well, I'm going to start closing out. I tell you, I tried to take my second round of sleep earlier, and these lawnmowers came through and then stormed, so there was no second round of sleep. Been keeping weird hours, like going to bed at 5 a.m. and stuff. I don't like it, but once you get on that certain pattern, it's hard to break. I used to be early morning. Now it's like reverse of that. Used to go to bed at 10 and wake up at 6 a.m. Now it's the opposite. So it's been messing with me. And then I tried to take my little snooze today, and these freaking lawnmowers show up and just got mutilated. So now I'm hallucinating. So, but everybody, thanks for listening, and thanks, Wham. Thanks to Daniel. It was a great show. And we'll see you next week with Al Going Back, OWL Going Back, Native American Indian horror author. He says American Indian, not Native, so let me stick with that. All right, everybody, have a good weekend.
All right, take it easy. Bye-bye.
Good night.